Welcome back to American Beef Ranch. Today I'm hoping to finish cultivating the last field on the home farm. Let's get to work. What's going on? Welcome back to American Beef Ranch. A little more vlog style for you today. I wanted to bring you along as I'm working on finishing up cultivating the home farm. I wish we were finished cultivating completely, but a couple things have happened that's not going to let us finish. So number one, all our equipment right now is being borrowed. So cousin's tractor, cousin's cultivator, the only piece of owned equipment we have is that disc down there. And so everything we have is borrowed or rented or traded, not really just borrowed. So we do have the liquid fertilizer kit on. We are putting on liquid organic fertilizer. If you guys haven't seen that, go see that video I made about cultivating and putting on side dressing corn. We don't need to talk about that too much, but before we get out in the field, we got to get it loaded. So let's get this guy loaded up. So if you've never been around liquid fish hydrolysate before, that is a component of this liquid fertilizer. It reeks. It's nasty, and it gets on your skin and it soaks in, and then every time I walk in the house, my wife is like, gross, you reek. And she doesn't want to hug me or kiss me or anything. So I'm hoping to get this done and we don't have to worry about it anymore. And anyway, so all we do is literally, I blended the fertilizer in this tank, and then I hook it up to these two tanks, which are teed together. We start our pump, and we pump that stuff in. Gonna let it agitate for just a few minutes. It's been sitting all day, so agitate this tank up and make sure it's mixed up real good. All right, so I click this valve, and as you can see, I hope you can see, fertilizer's filling up inside these tanks, and what we'll do is we'll let these tanks fill all the way up. This one always fills up a little faster, and what we'll do is we'll let them equalize, and then once they equalize, we'll put a little bit more in there. I should be able to finish this field on one full load. My rate has been off a little bit, just figuring out the fertilizer system, and it's basically set an orifice and a pressure and just go with it and see how close you can get. My speed has been changing a lot with the cultivating, just depending on the conditions. But otherwise, this setup that we built for planting and we've made it work for cultivating has worked really well. This cornfield is looking better than last year, so that's an improvement. We have a couple other things going on the cornfield that we will talk about in just a minute, but I do want to, when we get a tractor, have front 3-point so that we can just have a big tank up front, because even though these tanks, once they're on, they're fine. They're a pain in the butt to get on if you don't have the right equipment, which I just have a backhoe with forks, so it makes it kind of hard, but we go ahead and we get it done. So we'll get these filled, get to cultivate. All right, I think we got enough fertilizer in here to get the job done. Now here's the important part. Both valves, got to get them shut, and then you just be careful, because this stuff, you know, obviously there's a little bit in here that's going to drain. Yeah, not get any on us, because it stinks. Oh no, I got it on my thumb. I can feel it through these gloves. Yeah, and somehow while cultivating, between setting the cultivator up and doing whatever, I have lost several pairs of gloves. So these are in the tractor, and that's the way it's gonna roll. But cultivating has been nothing but a fight. I've used this tractor and cultivator before last year to cultivate corn, and it itself has kind of got some quirks that you got to know. But now that I know the quirks, it's not that big of a deal. I'm using the liquid fertilizer for the first time on the cultivator. Really like it. I think it's a great idea because obviously it's one less pass, and I kind of talked about it in that other video. But there's just some quirks to it. And then I've been fighting the cultivator. In time too, it took me a lot longer to get started. It took me a lot longer to get the fertilizer equipment back on here and set up. The cultivator, when I first brought it here, it was a little more broken than my cousins thought it was. But they came out, they went and got some parts, and they helped me get it back together. But it took us a whole day basically between them coming out, seeing what we needed, going to get parts, and then putting it back together. So there's that. And then, you know, I'm getting pulled in 100 different directions, trying to cultivate, trying to make sure water's still running because I don't want the water to sit any longer than it has to. So like as soon as I can, I'm cultivating, and then I have to sleep in there somewhere, which hasn't happened. I mean, one night I worked till 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I got up pretty early the next day, but then I went to bed kind of earlier that day, and then when I went to bed earlier, I ended up getting up at 2:30 and going back to work. So it's been one of those things. So kind of one of the quirks with this is I'm having to shift every time I turn. So I have to shift the tractor over a little bit so that this will run straight down the rows. And it's kind of annoying. But once I figure out the shift, it's not that big of a deal and I don't knock corn over anymore. So as you can see, corn's running pretty straight through the deals, and I have the fertilizer turned on, but I didn't have the pump turned on. Now the pump's on. But this is what it looks like. They just run through here and kill weeds. Put fertilizer on the corn. As you can see, we got some short spots, but we have some really good spots. A couple of things. It did this in this field last year in this same spot. I don't think it's water related. Our water's been really good, but this section is a lot better than it was in last year. And all of the bad spots that were bad last year are not as good, are better than they were last year. So we're making improvement, which is a good thing, but still we've got room for improvement, and we can go ahead and speed up as long as we keep the corn in the rows. And I've also found that going a little bit faster has worked a lot better than going a little bit slower. So I've been actually running 5.5 miles an hour, 6 miles an hour, and it's worked a lot better than going slower, just with the amount of weeds. That's one big thing I want to work on for next year. It's just there's way too many weeds when we planted. I should have gone over the ground again, but we ran out of time. So it is what it is. This is a good example of what I've been dealing with, you know. So I'm irrigating and I'm farming, and we're trying to work the ground all at the same time, and our pivots are pretty much all manual. So like right now, I got to get this pivot onto this half because I haven't done that half yet. So I got to get out here, got to go move it. But also, I want to keep this pivot moving because it's time for it to water too. So it's like I need to get it over here so that way I can go start water and, you know, stop cultivating again. But, you know, you got to stop. You got to come over to these boxes and move it. And I don't know why it's not working off my phone. I have this one is the only one I have working on my phone. But get this guy moving. But also, I wanted to show you our setup real quick on the fertilizer and what it's doing. So we'll look at that. Fertilizer stored in the tanks, comes down through the hoses up to this pump right here. This pump is ran off hydraulics. You can see we're actually pumping fluid right now through this valve here. This is pressure relief valve, so you set it how much pressure you want. We've got an electric valve here that's shut off. That runs up to the cap, and that's how I turn it on and off. Just one section, and then that comes up into here, and then we have each individual row. It runs out into a check valve, and inside the check valve we have an orifice, which is basically a dime with a hole in it, and that'll let so much liquid out. And then we've got the liquid coming down through here right in between the shields, but then you can see it's dripping down in the row right here on the plants exactly where we want it. Like I said, the goal is to stimulate growth. There's a whole bunch of good things in there that make the plant grow. So back to cultivating we go. Prime example of what I've been fighting. This sweep is bent and it's causing me problems. Let me get it cleaned off and I'll show you. These are rolling shields is what they're called. And we got our sweep here, but if you can see, it's much closer to this rolling shield than it is to this one. And that means, you know, there's always a little play. And so as the cultivator moves back and forth side to side, because it's closer to this side, if it moves that way, it's getting too close to corn. It's throwing too much dirt and it's causing it to hit more corn than it needs to. So I've got to figure out a way to get this thing straightened out so that way I don't hurt more corn than I need to. It's just, it's not working like it should, so I've got to fix it. So not a difficult fix, but you see now the distance is a lot closer. And I think it's gonna work a lot better for us. Doesn't help these shields are a little wonky. I may want to tweak it that way a little bit. I may mess around with it for a minute, but you can see now we are looking quite a bit better. But that shank is definitely bent. Something I want to add to the list to fix for my cousins. Now I'm happier with how that sweep is looking. That's what we call those blades, is sweeps. And so I'm gonna go ahead and try and see how it works. And like I said, I'm still having to shift the entire cultivator over just to get it to run down the middle of the rows. It's set up just like we were planning on. All the rows are perfect. I don't know how to explain it, but I probably should explain why it ended up like that. I have rocks. I have a lot of rocks. It's something that we're gonna have to work on consistently. We used a Limpkin Carrot 9 to work a lot of the ground. I should have a video coming on that soon. And that Limpkin handles rocks really well, but it also brings up a bunch of rocks. And just because of the timing and everything, we weren't able to really get the rocks all picked like we needed to, but also there's just a lot of rocks in this farm. We live in lava rock country, and there's just a lot of rocks. And you know, I'm sure, I know for sure I caught a pretty big rock with that was buried, and it tweaked it. And you know, I've kind of been fighting that one the whole time, so I don't think it was all me, but when you add a rock to the situation, it just doesn't make anything good. So that's where we're at. So we're gonna keep going for a little while until that pivot gets to where I need to start it, and then we gotta start some water, get back in the cultivator, and keep on going. But we're almost done. We're gonna get this 24-acre field knocked out here pretty quick. Y'all know what that is? Yep, that's a sweep off the back of the cultivator. Lost the plow bolt, so I think I have one in the pickup. And this day is being one of those days, but it's still doing a decent job cultivating without that sweep. But we'll drive right back to the pickup, jump out again, get that bolted back on, keep going. Actually, probably start water, to be honest. All right, that guy is back together, and like I said, it's time to change water. So I'm literally gonna walk right here to the pump station and turn the water on here on the north side of the canal. I just, when I've stopped this pivot, I literally just kill the power to it so it stops and then shut the valve off because my control box isn't working. But it's basically ready to start operating, so we'll turn it on. Yes, this is a total wreck. I need to get this grass cut. But you guys noticed I turned on not only one, but two valves when I was sending water this way to that pivot. And that's because I'm injecting something out of that big blue ice cube out back there. And I'll have a video out on that soon. Definitely stay tuned for that. Really cool stuff. But now I can go back to cultivating until I have to stop, walk to the pivot point, set the percentage again so it goes the speed it's supposed to go, and then get back in the tractor and finish cultivating. Struggles are real today, so I found some twine. I found a lot of twine, and it's running over corn with the Russian thistle. Oh, I hate Russian thistle, they're the worst. So, yeah, just not one thing, it's another. So we're just cruising along. We're about 3/4 of the way done with this pivot. I did stop and cook my wife dinner. We do like to cook dinner if we can and have dinner together. But we've been on this pivot and I've been noticing some striping. And what striping is we're in irrigation country, so, and I have irrigation pivots. Striping is where the soil's not as wet in one spot as it is in another spot. And that's not how it should be. Pivots are designed to water, or the idea is to water evenly, pretty much across the entire span. Obviously, there's a little deviation here and there, but it's less than 1%, so it shouldn't be obvious most of the time. And your soil definitely plays a part in that. If you have bad spots in the dirt, like, it's obvious, but we have some striping going on, and I've been talking to one of my friends that's an irrigation guy, and we come up with a couple ideas. So we're gonna have to work on that pivot later. Make sure you guys stay tuned for that. It's gonna be interesting because we just have some spots that need a more even distribution of water. The corn's still there and it looks okay. It's just that it should be better than it is. And we know it's the water for certain reasons, but I'll do a whole video on that stuff. But I'm gonna get this last little bit finished up here. I'm gonna have to feed the cows, and I've got to take this cultivator and these tanks off because this tractor's got to go back to the farm it belongs. So just keep cruising along. So we're here, the end of the field's right there. You know, like 5 or 6 passes up and down, or 5 total, whatever. But all of a sudden the water pressure just dove off on my pivots, and they don't look like they're running. So we're gonna go figure that out. Probably a power bump. We get that a lot. If the power bumps, it shuts my phase converters off. Phase converter makes single phase power into 3-phase power. I only get single phase out here, but we run 3-phase for the efficiency and the cost. But they do shut off if the power bumps. So I gotta go figure out what went on and why my pivots are off. And then the sun's going down a lot earlier in the daytime now, so I'm gonna run feed the cows, get that over with, and we'll come back and finish these last few rows in the dark. And then I'm gonna get up really early in the morning and get these tanks off. But let's go figure out what's wrong with these pumps. That's not a pump problem. I don't know why, but we have really been struggling this year with keeping enough water where it's supposed to go, and we shouldn't. It's not a hard thing to keep the water in here. And yes, I know this is a mess and there's a lot of weeds and all that stuff, but yeah. We're short water here and over there at this other pivot, which I didn't talk about because, but anyway, I'm gonna have to figure out getting more water into this pond, and then hopefully we get the water caught up. All right, here is where we're at. The cows are fed. I did finish cultivating. It was a fight till the very end, but to end the day off well, I had the perfect amount of fertilizer in my tanks. I didn't have hardly any extra that I had to run out. So that's awesome for in the morning when I got to take those tanks and that cultivator off and get it back to where that tractor belongs, because they need it. Finally, on the pond, I did go ahead and take the backhoe after I fed the cows, and it was dark already, but I cleaned out in front of the pipe of any weeds or anything like that. The pond level is still below where I'd like it to be, but it was high enough that the pumps are now pressured up. We are running normal pressure for our 3 little pivots on the 65-ish acres that they cover. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. God bless. Have a wonderful day. If you like this kind of stuff, please follow along. We'll see you next time on American Beef Ranch.